We had a great first panel there and introductions. We've got a great second panel to come. It's a real pleasure to have Pierluigi Londero with us, Head of Data Governance at the European Commission. Pierluigi, long-time known friend of the Forum. Great to have you with us. Ornella Cosumati, great to see you, Ornella. Ornella is Director of Sustainability Policy at Microsoft. You missed my my opening plug when I said how grateful we were to have Microsoft as our first ever tech partner 2 years ago, and great to have you with us. And of course, last but by no means least, Tassos Hanyotis, known to so many of you in the room from his days in DG Agri, and I'm delighted to say now Senior Advisor to the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. These three individuals are going to give us a great perspective on the policy dimension of this. So you've each got 3 minutes to kick us off here. We had an opening question to the previous panelists to what it was that was exciting them about the role of AI and digitization and transforming the agri-food system. Really, it's the same question to all of you, and we're going to get into what's going to be needed to fully unlock its potential. So I'm going to work my way down right from my right-hand side through Ornella and Tassos. But to begin with, Pierluigi, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good afternoon, and thanks for inviting me and inviting DG Agri to this event. I'm very happy to contribute and I'm very interested by the discussion so far. So I'm very excited. I'm nerd by training, and I'm happy to be here at this moment in this moment in evolution of this technology in this sector. So I see three things really, which I'm excited about. First of all, as an economic activity, I have to say that the potential of digital and now with artificial intelligence must be, the productivity and productivity in the sense of producing more with the same or the same with less inputs. The second part, working for a public administration, is the dream, in fact, that this technology brings also simplification in many of the human activities, especially the boring one and the reporting obligations. And third, in the scale of dreams, is that in let's say a productive agriculture with the neat field flat and with the salads in the rows, very, very precise. Maybe digital and AI can do better, yes, but not so much. In fact, I hope that these new technologies will allow us to do the difficult things. The let's say mixed cropping, agroforestry, elements of which provide good services also to the environment. And the mix of data and knowledge, and to be able to optimize also that. So that I would stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierluigi. Again, some immediate questions and thoughts that I have come to mind. I will resist the temptation to jump right into them. Ornella, I'm going to give the floor to you. We've known each other a long time. You've worked in different places other than Microsoft. It's interesting you're here talking about digitization and AI, and dare I say you have sustainability in your title. So, for me, that's what is really exciting about AI and digitization, how we integrate sustainability within that. So you don't have to talk about that, but I'm looking forward to your intervention.
Great question. I think it's on. Is it on? Yeah. Look, I think AI is really providing the opportunity to decarbonize several industries, right? I think we're all on the same journey with the objective of decarbonizing our supply chains, our operations, and farming is in the same space with the kind of, let's say, additional challenge that, we've heard the farmers loud and clear in Brussels and in other places in Europe that, they're clearly facing economic pressures, environmental challenges. They need to produce more to feed an ever-growing population, but with less resources. So technology really has this incredible opportunity to maximize efficiency across different industries, including farming, for different reasons. One, because you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So with data, you'll be able to definitely set baselines, set targets, and measure progress. But also because digitalization can actually help with these specific challenges, right? I think farmers can improve their efficiency in terms of water use, electricity use, ideally using less electricity and therefore minimizing their own costs in operations. But then if I bring it in the European political context, if we think of these parallel incomes opportunities from the whole carbon farming debate, then ideally, digital technologies can also help with that, right? Creating kind of a guarantee and saying, look, I can use technology to demonstrate that actually the carbon has been removed or that the carbon has been stored for X amount of years. And Microsoft, we like to say that we build tools to empower individuals and organizations, including farming, to achieve more. So we're not agri-experts, but we like to think that we should empower farmers with data-driven agriculture. And I'm gonna say the name of our one of our tools, which actually doesn't have the easiest name. So I'm just going to say once, and then we'll live with it. So Azure Data Manager for Agriculture, which I will refer to as ADMA, is really something that we built to help farmers get more access to information, therefore make more informed decisions, right? So what we did was to integrate our Copilot, so our AI chatbox, into this tool that takes data from sensors, satellite data, weather forecasts, and allows farmers to ask simple questions like, where did it rain last night? Did it rain on my fields? And based on the answer that is, generated by the tools and the data gathered, the farmer can obviously make informed decision. Something else I'm super excited about is this project that Microsoft has done with actually a research center in Ireland, developing this platform called Terrain AI, where essentially this is a modeling platform that allows governments and ideally an informed policy-making platform, right? So that means before developing a policy, you get to test it and see if it works. And I think that's super important when it comes to farming, right? So for example, we've seen it used in municipalities where they've seen that they've used the tool and they realize that if they were to build, let's say 20 trees in one area of the city, it will lead to this amount of CO2 emissions based on traffic and other conditions of that area. But if they build in somewhere else, the emissions will be much higher. So, again, this is helping customers, individuals and organizations to make more informed decisions, and in this case, informed policies. So.
I mean, again, I will resist to jump in, but I do think, and I would imagine my friend at the end, Mr. Haniotis, who is a big believer in impact assessments, would certainly find the power in the Terrain tool. Just before I go to him, Ornella, I'd just like you to talk, if you can, and we're willing to. We've had Ranveer Chandra talk to the forum on many occasions from Microsoft. Just give us a sense of why your company decided to jump into agriculture, why you thought it was an exciting place to operate. Because I know when we announced our partnership, we go, okay, Microsoft, that's interesting. Why is Microsoft interested in agriculture?
I think, for different reasons, and agriculture is one of the industries in which we operate, right? We are seeing huge potentials in some industries versus others. Obviously, AI has kind of made everything more exciting exponentially. We are now looking at the research space, for example. Using AI, you get to discover materials and make discoveries that might take years and make them in hours, right? So in general, I think the first answer, unfortunately, is that there is a lot of potential in different industries. The second is that obviously agriculture is a space, is an industry that is also a significant emitter, right? So there are emissions needs to be cut, and technology has, can offer a significant tool for that to happen. And we're looking at agriculture as well as energy systems, for example, the grids, right? There is so much that we're doing, and I think we might get there into the policy topics, but there is a lot that we're seeing AI do to maximize and optimize grids efficiency. So that's another area.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Ornella. And as I say, great to have you with us. Tassos, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, the great believer in impact assessment is retired from the commission, and so are impact assessments. Let me make a point in the beginning to try to put this in a bigger context. At least I'm a great believer, I think, in technologies. Nobody has contested that. I even gave a battle for biotech when it was forgotten. But I was reading something on the Financial Times as I was coming back from the Joint Research Center in Sevilla on Saturday. A lunch Financial Times interview of Emily Bender. If you don't know who's Emily Bender, don't worry, I didn't know, but she's one of the big monsters in linguistics and the large language models, and also very critical to artificial intelligence now. And she used a term that I found very interesting, stochastic parrots. I'm not going to explain to you what she meant with that, but I think we need to start with that, because when we talk about artificial intelligence, we should not underestimate that there is a trend out there that sometimes remind to those of us of a certain age of the discussions we had in our student years about the Luddites, the early 19th century movement of destroying machines, textile machines. Now, as with any technologies, artificial intelligence is here not only to stay, but to grow. So there is no way of stopping the technology. But as every other technology in history, it comes with opportunities and challenges. But what I find very interesting, it also comes with benefits and costs, but you cannot necessarily sum them up or net them out, because the benefits are in certain areas independent from the costs. And I think this is a very important element, especially if we talk about agriculture, because in agriculture, artificial intelligence has applications that were clearly the benefits outweigh by far whatever cost we could see, although we don't necessarily believe it. So here are my 3 bullet points to come up to your point. It's about data, it's about the use of data, and it's about the abuse of data. Now, with Pierluigi in our early and glorious years in DG Agri, we focused a lot both on the quantity and on the quality of data. In terms of the quantity of data, we have an exponential growth. In terms of the quality of data, it goes the other way around, not exponentially, but less and less we have exactly this capacity of checking what the heck we're talking about in terms of the data that's generated. And it's interesting that artificial intelligence could really help in netting it out under certain conditions. Second, about the use of data. I cannot find any other area where we can see it more clearly than improvements in land management. And I'm very glad that you have sustainability. I also have sustainability in my title, and I believe in it. And in land management, this is where we have the real prospects of measurable outcomes where you can see progress. There is resistance, there is hesitation, there is uneasiness about it. But we should not underestimate the enormous potential that is there in doing at the policy level as well, something that the farmers do, and we don't realize they're doing it on a day-to-day basis. They're bringing together the economic and environmental aspects. This is, Luigi will laugh, it's called jointness, doesn't it? I mean, this is exactly what policy has left behind. We managed to create a monster whereby the economic part is somewhere here, the environmental there, the social I don't know where, while on the ground they are together. And that's where artificial intelligence could help. But it can do it if we're also very much aware of the potential for abuse of data. And that's what scares people. the first issue was already mentioned, privacy. I don't know, don't need to get any better. What I need to remind people is that we were almost there 5-6 years ago in integrating into the Farm Advisory Data Network environmental indicators, the Farm Sustainability Data Network. They're still discussing. We were almost there. And we got stopped because of privacy issues. And what is the privacy issue? Well, the lack of understanding that the economic data is totally protected, but the data in terms of the environment is public good data. Pierluigi didn't make a reference to the fact that he discovered a startup in Belarus at the time where some young people were downloading from Galileo information, Copernicus, and they were selling it to others. They were downloading for free and selling information about European agriculture to those that wanted to purchase it. And I think the second issue that is developing right now, because artificial intelligence is about the very fast use of this enormous amount of information, what happens with the generation of fake data? And what about if we get a massive generation of fake data that distorts the situation? That's where a policy framework is extremely important. This is where you need public policy, but you need it in a manner that avoids the mistakes of the past, that allows a lot of flexibility, and that's where operability comes in, and allows also the possibility for incentives to actually play the role. When, and I finished that years back, we were discussing with Copa Cogeca and with Eurostat and with the SEMA, the European Association of Agricultural Manufacturers, the way of addressing precision farming, protection of data privacy. What was the figure about precision farming? It was 2% at the time, Pierluigi. And now it's about 25 to 30%, and it is growing. So it's inevitable that we're going there. And I honestly believe that the opportunities are out there, but we should not present these opportunities as a done deal. There are some risks that we need to be aware, and we need to address them in parallel.
Thanks, Tassos. So lots of questions that I think immediately, at least for me, come from that. I'm going to start with you, Pierluigi, and I don't, Daniela, you may also want to comment on this. We've talked about data governance, privacy, quality of data, how we ensure that the technology becomes democratized, universalized for as many farmers as possible, incentivized to use. What are the key features of a policy framework that is going to enable us to use this in the right way and to reach as many farmers as possible? Pierluigi, I'll start with you. Don't feel the obligation to come in, Daniela, but if you'd like to, I will turn to you.
Thank you. In fact, let me start broader than agriculture, because you all know in 2020 with the data strategy came an avalanche of legislation about data, about artificial intelligence, digital markets. So we are the first bloc in the world to have regulations in what was a far west, and there were no rules. So we are also experimenting, because being the first, and we might also make mistake. So this legislation is entering gradually into force. And we hear it also from some of the speakers, we need a clear legal framework. Any economic activity, at least in Europe, the operators want a certain certainty. At the same time, that cannot be the only answer. You need both. Legislation can be seen also as a brake to development or slow down. So you need to, with the other foot, push on the accelerator, which is providing support for this technology to be adopted in Europe. So remaining at broader level, this year is the year of the AI again. We have the AI continent communication came up recently, and notice the word, the continent. The ambition is that the European Union, which is now maybe lagging behind, wants to become the continent of the AI in the future. So high ambition there. gigafactories, AI factories. So it's really the infrastructure getting in place. Then comes apply AI strategy with also a sectorial approach. Agro-food will be one of the sectors where we are trying to see how we can boost AI. And also there is a data union strategy, which was announced last year by von der Leyen, where I worked with data for many years. You need data if you want to understand what's going on, maybe anticipate what happens in the future, and test if the policy that you invent will work or not. Now, the data, you need data because AI needs data. So a data union strategy will try to boost the availability of data to feed AI. So I think with the two, let's say, legislative framework and with the support, we should be able to advance and maybe make big steps in Europe so that, even in the agriculture sector where there are specific challenges, we can tailor, the common agricultural policy is one tool, but the research is another one to provide more targeted support than these broad initiatives.
Thank you, Pierluigi. So Daniela, same question to you, and just maybe a build as well. And we think about it in terms of data union. The quality piece in this comes in. How do we ensure that what the data that we're feeding really is of the quality that enables the machines to learn in the right way?
Yeah, just to add a few aspects on the what is happening in terms of research and innovation activities in the sector. So we have under Horizon Europe, we have 60 partnerships, and in the agri-food landscape, really a couple of partnerships that mostly all have an observatory. So they all work on collecting data, but also finding new potentially relevant KPIs. They look into forecasting, they look into creative, innovative approaches that then can, of course, feed into also in already existing monitoring dashboards, because, for example, the JRC has a food systems monitoring dashboard. So it's a bit of a really trial and error what can be done at the R&I space with these partnerships where all member states work together and collaborate across the thematic partnerships. For example, there's a partnership on agroecology. Also, there will be a partnership. I'm sure, Pierluigi, you will mention that, the partnership Agriculture of Data. But the idea is really that they collaborate together, that they all come in with their expertise and try different things that then, of course, later on can be scaled and more broadly used.
Thank you. Ornella, let me turn to you. So if that's from the policymaker perspective in terms of what is the key features or could be key features of the framework, what does Microsoft need from public policymakers, both in terms, I suppose, of policy enablers, but also collaborators to be able to make the full use of the kind of tools you mentioned, Verena, that you're making available that can better inform the policies that we put in place?
Sorry. So I think, well, not surprisingly, probably access to the internet as much as possible, right? So that equal access to these technologies is something that, of course, will be, it's key. I also think, to try and kind of close that digital divide, obviously financial incentives for it is also what we'll get to play to set a level playing field. So I don't know if I'm ready to mention the CAP budget, but perhaps some sort of strengthened role for digital technologies in the whole space around subsidies for farmers. It's probably something that should be considered. And then one thing that we actually found as a common trend across industries, not only in the agriculture space, is obviously skilling. So we have all these technologies. First of all, very often, this case, farming community doesn't even know what exists, right? So the role of those national advisors to also inform them on what is available, what's on the market, and what makes sense to use. It's one of the things that should be encouraged. And secondly, really trying to have these trainings for farmers to learn how to use them. then, and probably this is a stretch a bit further from the specific digitalization in agriculture, but we need better infrastructure. And if the objective is to really decarbonize the sector, then, we can help farmers also by making electricity cheaper and really invest in the grids, right? So expanding the grid to access that extra capacity. There is a lot of current power available, which is just not connected to the European grid, right? So focusing on that, and it's reassuring to see that the Commission is trying to tackle that, and I think it's something that inevitably will also benefit the farming community. And then I'm hopeful that within the policy framework with digital technologies, we'll also get to see more young farmers, right, and more women in farming, and that's something that it's going to be hopefully helpful for the next generations, right?
I was about to say that for an agriculture event these days in Brussels, my next question was indeed going to be about the Common Agriculture Policy, and I was going to say that I'd done rather well to get to 1 hour and 54 minutes without mentioning it, but Ornella, you beat me to it by 2 minutes, so thank you for that. But that is the question for you, Tassos. We're having a debate about MFF, multi-annual financial framework, the future of the CAP, single fund. How do we make sure that the public money that we had available for investment in rural development, which for me includes the connectivity, the infrastructure point, how do we make sure that that continues to be available at an EU level and indeed at a member state level?
You never make sure that you're going to have the money that you want because there are so many competing things, but at least we can start with something that helps in that direction, which is ask the right questions. And I'm not sure that we're asking the right questions right now. And part of it, let me start with what you said, decarbonization. Everybody keeps talking about carbon pricing, carbon taxation, carbon this, carbon the other. What do we measure? What is a carbon price? We talk about the wheat price, we talk about the milk price, we talk about the price of a cattle or something. We know it's a commodity that is being, has certain characteristics. Whether you put a carbon price at 50 or 100 euros per ton means absolutely nothing if you don't know what you're measuring. In different soil characteristics, different or even within the same soil characteristics, different practices have completely different results in terms of the capacity to emit carbon, but also to absorb carbon. Do we use all this enormous wealth of information that is generated and use tools of artificial intelligence to make sense out of it? To take the maps that have already been produced by the Joint Research Center with the help of our satellites and actually say, okay, what do they indicate in terms of these particular regions with these soil characteristics, and what type of policies are more pertinent with that? Well, if you ask this type of questions, then you might start getting answers about what type of policy you need and what type of money that you need. But the way the debate is right now is very simple. Either we make a social policy, which means that we do a cut at a certain level which nobody knows, whether it's per 1,000 euros, whether it's per hectare, there's going to be a significant part of land of the European Union that will be out of any policy coverage. Or we take the public money for public good school of thought that for 20 years repeats the same thing and focus only on agro-environmental measures, which cover in the best possible way part of the agricultural land and leaves, at least in my calculation, 50% of land in Europe is risking to be left out without the current level of support. And what will happen is we will have a collapse in asset values. Now, if you have a collapse of asset values, try to bring investment in agriculture in a long-term policy framework. So these are the basic policy questions that have to be asked. And when I made the comment jokingly before, I made it with frustration. There is no impact assessment and there is no analysis done anymore. I mean, at the time that we discuss about all this wealth of data, what we're doing is putting focus on infographics that presents a myth that has been created here and there. If we don't start with simple questions in an area that is full of information, that is mature to tell us how we decarbonize, where in the world are we going to do it? And I finish with that, with my frustrations. Take the Draghi report, competitiveness. Where is the agri-food system? Where is a sector that has an enormous and exploding agricultural trade balance? Where is a sector that exports agricultural machinery and has a trade surplus with the US? Where is a sector that was the first to use Earth observation and satellite imagery for concrete purposes related to agricultural productivity, to the environment, or what have you? I mean, if we keep self-flagellation, that's where we're going to go. And I think artificial intelligence really presents opportunities for the European Union, but this cannot be exploited if we throw another balloon up in the air that we want to be the first continent in the world that is doing it, because there are other continents that without slogans are moving ahead.
So I think that's true, and I'm going to give you a follow-up and also invite our two colleagues from the Commission to comment if they want to. Between you and Ornella, I mean, you've talked about the different dependencies here. You know, it's not just an agriculture point, it's a climate point, it's an energy point, it's a competitiveness point. You've been very clear, Tassos, on this occasion and others, we have to ask the right questions. How do you join that up at an EU institutional level where you're not only asking the right questions, but frankly, the right people in the room in a way that they can answer them? That's a question to you, Tassos.
Well, I've written about that on the basis of my experience with, I started with the Cholos reform, but I repeated it last time around. I think all three institutions have to learn a lesson of what they're not doing correctly when we talk about co-decision. The first lesson that the Commission has to learn is that the communication strategy of the European Commission does not stop with a proposal, it starts with a proposal. Because at least in the past, we were making proposals based on very solid analysis, and we never followed up the negotiation process, which was done by another part of the House, by the way, by explaining that's why we made this proposal. So when in the member states or in the parliament, people were making amendments, and that's the very natural process, somebody could say, listen, if you do this, it doesn't make sense. Second, the European Parliament that has a very increasing role, does it have a service like the Congressional Research Service in the United States, which is independent and where every member of the Senate or the House can go and ask the question, tell me what it means, whether it's a long study or a two-page brief? What they get out is an independent assessment of what they are about to propose. And third, we have the member states, because now in the second reading of any proposal of the Commission is a note taker. So it's between the Council and the Parliament. In the Council, you have to negotiate with the presidency. Does any member state trust another member state the same way they used to trust the Commission? In my view, no. Now, which means that if you want to actually come up with a better way of doing things, what is the big gun that the Commission has? The legislative initiative. That's a big difference with the US. The legislative initiative is still in the European Commission. If you make a proposal that is based on solid analysis and it's limited to the main areas that you have to focus on, you increase your chances of moving things ahead. If you open all the fronts at the same time, you usually come up with a piece of legislation that requires in 2 years to come up with what is called an omnibus legislation to simplify what should have already been simplified in the beginning.
As always, Tassos, to the point, do either of my colleagues from the European Commission, my friends from the European Commission, I should say, wish to comment on what Tassos has just said? Yeah.
Not to come to just maybe to complement on a specific area where we look at right now in terms of coherence. I think that is important because when initiatives come out and strategies, what we look at now, there seems to be a bit more focus on really being coherent. When we look at, for example, the startup and scale-up strategy that I just discussed, we will have next week the life sciences strategy, and then we will have the new bioeconomy strategy coming in Q4 this year and next year the Biotech Act, I see like a lot of efforts to be coherent across these initiatives that different DGs are working with. So there seems to be quite some cooperation across those, and I think that's a good sign.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to bring the audience in. Show of hands of any questions. Yes, sir, I'll bring you in just 1 second. Before I do that, Ornella, a question back to you, just in a slightly different direction. We talk a lot about soil. Of course, the link with that is water. I'd just be interested, it came up in earlier dialogue, how Microsoft in particular is applying AI and digital solutions to improve water efficiency as well as soil and energy, as you say, water efficiency, forecasting and usage at the farm level.
So I think we've noticed the potential for digitalization and efficiency and optimization of systems on water specifically, not only within the agricultural space, right? So at Microsoft, we have one of the sustainability commitments is to be water positive by 2030, meaning replenishing more water than we use. By use, I mean obviously the water that we use in our data centers for cooling systems. So the water that we use in our operations, we always try and replenish it in the same basin from where we've taken it. And some of those replenishment projects include use of digital technologies for the water systems in a municipality, so to detect leakages, and the amount of water they saved just with that is incredible. And a lot of that is also done at farm level, right? So doing projects with farmers in the local communities to improve water efficiency on their ground. So for example, in Spain, we worked with this startup called Agro Analytics, which is a startup on precision irrigation, to reduce the water use on 200 hectares of land. And what we do is that we use satellite imagery, climate data, soil and crop conditions to generate like informed precision irrigations recommendations. And this obviously helps farmers that way. Something else that we do with another tool, a set of open source tools that we have, which is called Farm Vibes. Basically, this again is a set of tools that helps farmers make informed decisions. But because it's open source, then you can also tailor it. Well, everyone can tailor it to their own specifics. So, for example, if we have farmers that are using it in water stressed areas, they can ask that the recommendations made are kind of biased towards less water use, right? And the examples are endless.
Okay, I'm going to resist the temptation to come with a follow-up and do what I said I was going to do, which is bring the audience in. So, sir, just say who you are, where you're from, and then you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Benjamin Franke, speaking for BASF Agricultural Solutions. I have a question following up on Tassos. You made some very interesting remarks, and I think that question might be between you and between Pierluigi, actually. So you spoke about the quality of data and the declining quality of data and the disconnect between sustainability and economics on the two different sides. So looking back at the vision for agriculture and food, I think there were two interesting aspects, and there one was the collect once, use multiple times principle. And the other was the on-farm sustainability compass. So what's your take? Do you think these initiatives could help to improve the quality of data and to reconnect sustainability and economics?
Certainly they will, but it's not the first time that they have been introduced. Why? And I think we have to ask ourselves why we didn't achieve this in the past. And I think there is a very significant fear that farmers have that data is going to be used for control purposes on legislation that is really very complex. And we need to split these two elements and provide some incentive to farmers to provide the information. Perhaps if they know that they can get something from it. I don't want to use this opportunity and abuse the time, but I have written in LinkedIn a couple of things of how I think this could possibly be done. But my feeling is this: you need to make clear control is one thing and you have the ways of doing it. But the reason you need to build data is to provide not just for the sake of statistics, but to provide the feedback and continuous advice to farmers about how they benchmark what they're doing with the average of the region of the member state. And that is where I think we have failed in the past.
Yes, so on the once only and this idea that, and it's not an idea, last year, after the tractors in the streets in Brussels and across Europe, we launched a survey to farmers. And what's the problem? Is it so difficult and complicated to do your job in terms of reporting back to the government? And we received 26,000 replies. So we didn't expect that. We had many closed questions, yes, no, but also many open questions. So how do you read 26,000 replies? We used AI, I have to confess, but it was a laborious process also with that. We did some cross checks, but anyway, the point was the farmers were telling us, yes, it's 6 days a year on average. I spend behind my desk to report back to the local authorities. But then the next question was, do you use digital tools? No. So we saw that digitalization could break this vicious circle. So and so what did we do this year? We had the opportunity, another omnibus task, to fix what was not working before. And it was about simplification. And simplification, it's mostly removing obligations. And it's not to do things differently, it's to remove some obligations. So the package is now discussed at Council and Parliament. And we planted there one article on basically on interoperability, asking the member states to do some effort to improve the connection between the public data, because if it was there, they wouldn't need to go back to the farmers 3 times to ask the same thing in the same year. So we are now discussing that with the council. It's not, they're not very happy about that, because in a simplification package, we ask them to do something more. So you see but it will simplify the life of farmers later on. So that's one thing. And on the other one, on farmer sustainability, yes, I think that the concept was there to be able to, as a farmer, to compare yourself to the neighboring, the farmers in your region, farmers in your country producing the same product mix as you. Where are the areas where I do better or worse, and then I need to improve. I think the digital technology can make that easier, and with much more data, Internet of Things data, we should be able to do it much more detailed and without entering by hand the numbers. And so this is the idea behind that. Thank you.
I think that simplification piece is interesting. As some folks in the room know, I'm involved with an ag tech startup in the US, which is an ecosystem service marketplace. And when we started, it was taking farmers 3 days to enter all the data that is needed. With the tools, they've got that down to 35 minutes. And that has just driven adoption and take up exponentially. So the power is there. I am having people wave watches at me to tell me that we are just about out of time. But of course, I can't let this close without putting the same question to this panel that I put to the panel previously. So I will do so. We're in 2035. I can guess Ornella's answer, but we're in 2035. Has AI and digitization disrupted and revolutionized the agri-food system? Or is it just an incremental technological innovation of the like that we've seen over the last 70 years? And just because I know he'll have an answer on it, I'll start with Tassos, and then I'll come to Pierluigi and give Microsoft and Ornella the last word. Tassos.
Well, it's going to be an evolution in terms of something that is standard with all technological breakthroughs. The gap between those that are using technologies and those that are not using will grow bigger. in terms of the potential use, it's clearly going to be one of the biggest revolutions we have seen in terms of technology.
Super. Pierluigi.
Yes, I agree with that view. By then I will be retired, like Tassos, and maybe I will be discussing in this fora, and looking forward to it. I think one point which was just made, and we heard it before, but it's also very important, is this question of digital divide. In Europe, we try to bring everybody on board and not only a few. So this, the fact that we want to shape a digitalization for the agricultural sector that works for everybody. So we are preparing a digitalization strategy for the EU. The member state, they do that as part of the common agricultural policy. We want to shape a direction till 2035, 2040, where we want to go, how we accompany this transition, which is happening anyway. So we wanted to make it right.
Ornella.
Yeah, so needless to say, I think this is going to be the greatest revolution of our times. I think I'm actually hopeful that it will be that fast that you'll get to see it before you retire. Simply because, no, but honestly, if we think about it, 3 months ago, the world looked very different. And this technology is increasing and you know, increasing efficiency and improving itself and its own efficiency, in fact, at unprecedented speed. So I'm really hopeful that we will get to have you know, something that will really improve, optimize the farming sector, even and improve its sustainability at a very fast, you know, short time.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. There are two things that excite me about the future for agriculture, not the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, the future of agriculture. One is the amount of collaboration and new money that is flowing into the sector in a way I haven't seen at any time in my career, whether it's ecosystem service markets, whether it's financial institutions wanting to get involved. I think how we organize that will determine the impact it can have. But the second area, which is why I was so keen to moderate our discussion today, is AI and digitization. And as you rightly said there at the end, Ornella, I mean, the world is moving so quickly. Just that move from 3 days worth of data input to 35 minutes in less than 3 years, really, I think shows you how quickly this debate is moving. This opportunity is moving. So I hope to be back in 10 years' time to test whether all our panelists were right and that it was revolution I'll say revolution, not disruption, and not incremental change. And we'll certainly have you back, Pierluigi, because and you as well, Daniela, because we do find that once people step out of the European Commission like Tassos, they tell us what they really think. No, I'm kidding. Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. Thank you so much to Microsoft. Thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you to Maria for co-hosting this with us. It's been absolutely tremendous. I've really enjoyed it. But time has beaten us, and I believe we're about to be kicked out of the room. So in the immortal words of Warner Brothers, that's all, folks.